Everything in your life, the way you think, the way you move, the outcomes you create, can be traced back to habit. Not the dramatic, once-in-a-while choices, but the small, consistent actions you take every single day. That's what shapes your direction. That's what builds your identity. And yet, most people still believe success comes from a moment, a breakthrough, a sudden spark of luck. But it doesn't. The truth is, success hides in repetition. It's built in the ordinary. It's forged in what you do when no one's watching. There is one habit, simple, clear, and often ignored, that has the power to change your life faster than you think. A shift that doesn't take years to see results. In fact, it can begin to reshape everything overnight. And if you appreciate what we're building here, this space for clarity, for discipline, for becoming, there's a simple, free favor I'll ask. Hit the subscribe button. It helps keep this message alive and reaches those who need it most. That's what Stoicism is really about. Taking control, owning your time, your energy, your response to life. Because if you don't, someone or something will. The Stoics didn't seek to control the world. They trained themselves to master their own nature. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In a world constantly competing for your attention, the ability to govern your inner life is no longer optional, it's essential. Most people, without realizing it, have surrendered that control. They wake up and immediately place their lives in the hands of external forces. A stream of messages, obligations, and distractions flood in before they've had a chance to think clearly. From the moment their feet touch the floor, the day belongs to someone else. They react instead of act. They follow rather than lead. And so, each day begins the same way and ends with the same questions. Where did the time go? Why do I feel behind? Why does nothing ever change? But here's the question worth asking. What if you no longer allowed the world to dictate your rhythm? What if, instead of being swept up in the current, you chose to direct the flow? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And he was right. Most people don't even realize the extent to which they've been shaped by patterns they never intentionally created. Their habits, their thoughts, their emotional responses, they were formed by chance, not by choice. But once you become aware, once you see clearly how your attention has been dispersed, you can no longer pretend you're powerless. So what truly separates those who drift through life from those who make meaningful progress? It isn't a secret technique or some morning ritual lifted from a self-help book. It isn't about rising at dawn for the sake of appearance. The difference lies in a single, transformative commitment to own your time and your energy, consistently and without compromise. Plato taught that the first and best victory is to conquer self. This habit is that victory in motion. It is the conscious decision to no longer wait for ideal conditions, no longer delay action until you feel inspired. It is the refusal to be governed by fleeting emotions or external noise, to live with intention, to act with clarity, to protect what matters. That is the hallmark of those who lead themselves. This shift may appear subtle, but its effects are profound. When you take ownership of your time, your focus sharpens. You begin to distinguish the urgent from the important. You see clearly where your energy is being drained, and you begin to reclaim it. You stop moving aimlessly. You stop filling your day with empty tasks and start aligning every action with a deeper purpose. Aristotle once observed, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. And this habit, deliberate ownership of your time and energy, is the foundation of that excellence. It is not driven by emotion, but by discipline, not reliant on external validation. but grounded in self-respect. You start moving with purpose. Your actions become deliberate. Your emotions no longer run the show. You don't wait for inspiration. You create momentum. You become the one who builds, not the one who waits. And the effects: immediate, tangible, life-altering. Suddenly you're not asking, why am I not moving forward? You're too busy accelerating. You're not watching others win. You're too deep in your own execution. You don't crave motivation anymore. You've made action your default setting. Why is this so powerful? Because it cuts across everything. It shapes how you wake up, how you respond to setbacks, how you stay focused when it's inconvenient, how you keep showing up when nobody's watching. It turns discipline from a struggle into a system, from a chore into your core identity. Still think it sounds too simple? That's the thing. Profound changes often come from what seems obvious, even ordinary. But ordinary doesn't mean ineffective. Most people overlook it because it doesn't feel revolutionary. There's no dramatic unveiling, no applause, just a quiet, internal shift. And yet, that's what makes it so effective. Like Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And the examined life, the deliberate life, that's where growth begins. It's not that the path is hidden, it's that most people are too distracted to walk it. How does this shift become sustainable? It begins by choosing every day to prioritize direction over emotion, to move forward whether you feel like it or not. Carl Jung noted, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." That's the difference between living in your mind and living in reality. You stop narrating your potential and start proving it. You stop thinking about change and start becoming it. And as the days stack, your habits take shape, not as temporary fixes, but as the architecture of who you are becoming. Isn't that what we're all really seeking? A life where we don't just survive the chaos, but move through it with clarity. A way of living that doesn't rely on bursts of motivation, but runs on internal alignment. Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." When you move with intention, you begin to see which actions are truly yours and which ones were borrowed, imitated, inherited, or driven by fear. And once you recognize the difference, you naturally stop choosing what drains you. What happens when discipline becomes your norm? You stop negotiating with your lesser self. You stop waiting for the stars to align before you make your move. You start to build a relationship with discomfort, because now discomfort signals growth, not danger. You stop avoiding the hard things and begin to invite them, because you've seen firsthand how quickly progress compounds once you get out of your own way. Why do so few people ever reach this point? Because consistency isn't glamorous. Because real transformation doesn't post well on social media. It requires showing up even when no one's watching, even when nothing around you changes, at least not right away. But over time, everything changes. Not because the world bends for you, but because you've bent yourself into someone capable of navigating it with strength, patience, and purpose. Then ask yourself, why so few people live like this? Why so many claim they want success, but can't get out of bed without checking their phone? Why they speak of ambition, vision, drive, only to spend the first hour of the day reacting to everyone else's agenda? Why they talk about discipline, but surrender hours to gossip, entertainment, or mental clutter? Why they say they want change, but make the same choices that kept them stagnant the day before? We've normalized distraction. We've made it acceptable to live on autopilot. But what if the real problem isn't that people are lazy or unmotivated, but that they've never learned to protect their attention? Here's the truth. People don't have a time problem. They have a control problem. They're not short on hours. They're short on ownership. Carl Jung warned us long ago. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And distraction? It's the easiest form of avoidance. When you stop and really look at it, your habits, your routines, your choices, you begin to realize how much of your life you've surrendered to noise. Not maliciously, not consciously, but slowly, day by day, you've given pieces of your time away to convenience, to emotion, to expectation. And what's left is often not yours, but what's left over. But once you see that, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize how subtly you've been pulled off course, you start to reclaim your direction. You stop outsourcing your attention. You decide, quietly, powerfully, that your hours belong to you. And in that moment, you begin to rise. No more drifting. No more waking up with no sense of mission. No more letting the first message or headline shape the tone of your day. You get up and you move. Not based on mood, but on purpose. You execute without consulting your feelings, because feelings are fleeting and goals are not. You begin to treat time like the rare, irreplaceable asset it is, because that's what it is. Plato once said, "The beginning is the most important part of the work, and your day's beginning. It sets the tone for everything. You either claim it with clarity, or the world takes it by default." And when you make that shift, when you go from reacting to everything to creating with intent, your output changes, not gradually, immediately. You get more done in a single day than you used to squeeze into a week, not because you suddenly became superhuman, but because you're no longer fragmented. You're finally focused. Focused attention is rare, and like anything rare, it becomes powerful. You stop multitasking your life away. You stop trying to do everything at once, and instead do the right things deeply, consistently, and without compromise. Socrates once said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." And that's exactly the danger most people face. Not failure through idleness, but failure through unexamined busyness. But once you realize that productivity isn't about speed, it's about direction, everything shifts. Now consider this. Are you operating from intention or reaction? Because how you answer that will quietly shape every day you live, and eventually define the future you're heading toward. It's not a small question, it's the question. Most people never stop long enough to ask it. They just keep going. But going where? Running fast means nothing if you're running in circles. Aristotle once said, "All men by nature desire to know." But knowing yourself, your tendencies, your patterns, your unconscious defaults, is where that desire must begin. The winners, they've made that shift. They know that discipline beats motivation every single time, because motivation is unpredictable. It's a fair weather friend. It shows up when it's easy, when it feels good. But when the alarm goes off early, when the task is difficult, when nothing around you is cheering, discipline is what steps in. The ones who rise don't rely on how they feel. They act, especially when they don't feel like it, because they've trained their mind to serve their mission, not their momentary mood. Isn't that what strength really is? Not just force, but direction. Not emotionless, but governed. But discipline forces you to face yourself. It strips away the noise, the rationalizations, the excuses. And what you're left with is clarity. You either did what you said you'd do, or you didn't. There's no hiding from that. Most people make the mistake of thinking motivation is the trigger. It's not. Action is. The first step precedes the spark. Waiting for motivation is like standing in the dark and hoping the sun will rise just for you. It won't. But if you strike the match, if you act despite the absence of inspiration, you generate your own fire. The more you act, the more motivated you become, and the more you follow through, the more natural it feels to do it again. It's not a fluke, it's feedback. You showed your brain that momentum is possible, and now it wants to keep going. But why do some people seem to rise above while others remain stuck in place? It's not luck, it's not talent, it's not even timing. It's something much simpler, but far more powerful. It's the ability to move regardless of how they feel. Winners act with urgency, not with panic, but with presence. They know that hesitation is a thief, that waiting to feel ready is the quickest way to never begin. So they stop waiting. They protect their focus like it's oxygen, because it is. In a world built to scatter your mind in 100 directions, clarity is survival. The more focused you are, the more of your potential you can access. And they say no, often and without apology, not out of selfishness, but out of alignment. If it pulls them away from their mission, it doesn't belong. Plato warned, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." These individuals have declared that victory not through talk, but through action. And yes, that means cutting things out, ruthlessly, saying no to distractions, no to obligations that serve other people's priorities, no to habits that quietly drain your energy and steal your edge. It's uncomfortable, because it requires you to let go of what's familiar. It forces you to confront the reality that some of the things occupying your time are not building your future. They're just filling the space. But that discomfort? It's necessary, because nothing new can grow in a life that refuses to let the old die. That's the part most people won't do. They'll chase structure but avoid sacrifice. They'll download every productivity app, convinced the solution lies in the latest system, the newest tool. They'll set resolutions in January and forget them by March. But they won't make the hard cuts. They won't confront the clutter, not just in their calendars, but in their minds. They won't eliminate the noise. And most importantly, they won't take full ownership, because ownership means there's no one left to blame, no algorithm, no boss, no circumstance, just you. So they stay busy, but never effective. Their calendars are full, but their results are empty. They check boxes, but never make progress. They feel exhausted, not because they've done too much, but because they've done too much of what doesn't matter. They move constantly, but always in circles. It's like Jung once said, "Hurry is not of the devil, it is the devil." Movement without meaning becomes a form of self-sabotage. But the people who rise, they live differently. They move through the same world, but they do it on their own terms. They don't wait for clarity to arrive. They create it. They don't need reminders or alarms to wake up early. They rise before the world because they value solitude, stillness, strategy. They carve out time to think, plan, and prepare. Not because it's fashionable, but because it gives them the edge most people are too distracted to earn. Do you see the difference? The average person lives in reaction. The uncommon person lives with intention. One is driven by what others demand. The other is anchored in what truly matters. Socrates said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." And he was right. A packed schedule means nothing if it's not aligned with your deeper goals. The hard truth is, most people are addicted to motion because it distracts them from meaning. But when you cut through the noise, when you simplify, when you subtract, you begin to notice something. Focus becomes easier. Energy becomes sustainable. Results begin to appear. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally trying smarter. Your life stops being a constant reaction and starts becoming a deliberate creation. They guard the first hour of their day like it's sacred. No emails, no news, no scrolling, just silence, strategy, and movement. That space, the stillness before the world begins to pull, isn't a luxury. It's essential. It's where clarity is sharpened, where direction is chosen, and where the mind sets its tone. Because the first hour isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become while doing it. It's a statement to yourself, I'm in control today. Because how you start is how you finish. If you give away your focus early, you'll chase it for the rest of the day. It's like water slipping through your fingers. Once it's gone, you're left scrambling, hoping to recapture something that was never supposed to be lost. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." The more you avoid taking ownership in the morning, the more life overwhelms you by noon. And suddenly, your day doesn't feel like yours. It feels borrowed, or worse, stolen. But when you lead from the front, when you open your eyes and act like your time is yours, you start to operate on a level most people never reach. You begin to experience a strange but powerful feeling, authority over your own existence. And with that, something shifts. Decisions become crisper, emotions settle, distractions feel less magnetic. Why? Because you began your day in command, and everything else falls in line behind that. You stop leaking energy, not in some dramatic way, but quietly. You say no more easily. You scroll less because you're already engaged in something meaningful. You stop negotiating with excuses because there's no longer room for them in your schedule. You don't have to find time anymore because you've already claimed it. Socrates once said, "The secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." And that's exactly what this morning space allows. It becomes a daily act of building, internally, deliberately, and without distraction. You stop entertaining anything that doesn't move you forward, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You realize that time spent on things that don't nourish your goals is time spent delaying them. So you start pruning. You let go of conversations that drain you. You turn down invitations that pull you off course. You even silence your own doubts, not because you've silenced your mind, but because you've trained it to listen to something deeper, your purpose. Isn't that what we're all looking for beneath the noise? Not more tasks, not more chaos, but a way to move through the day with intention, clarity, and conviction. You treat your mornings with that level of importance, the rest of your life begins to rise to meet that standard, and the speed of your progress, it explodes, not gradually, not hesitantly, suddenly. You begin to realize that growth doesn't have to crawl. It accelerates the moment you remove the friction. All the time you used to lose to doubt, to overthinking, to meaningless obligations, it's reclaimed. And with that time comes clarity. And with clarity comes action. And once action becomes consistent, the results come faster than you thought possible. Things that used to take weeks now take days. Why? Because there's nothing pulling you off course anymore. No interruptions chipping away at your momentum. No drifting thoughts or scattered intentions. No time wasted justifying procrastination to yourself. It's just you and your mission, unfiltered, undistracted, and fully alive. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And that awakening? It happens when you eliminate everything that puts you back to sleep. You stop starting over. You stop falling into the trap of stop-and-go progress. You stop spending your energy trying to get back what distraction stole. Instead, you move consistently, steadily, and suddenly you're doing more than ever, but feeling lighter while doing it. Not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. And here's what most people forget. Momentum is real. It's not just a concept, it's a psychological force. It compounds. It builds on itself. Once you have it, you become almost immune to hesitation. But you won't get it if you keep stopping every time you don't feel like moving. You won't build anything meaningful if your effort depends on whether today feels right. You won't change your life if you keep pausing your progress for every distraction that promises quick comfort. Plato once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." And power, in this case, begins with consistency, the ability to keep showing up, to keep moving forward, even when no one is watching, even when no one is clapping, especially then. If you keep letting distractions in, if you keep giving up control, you rob yourself of that momentum. Every scroll, every "I'll do it later," every moment you allow yourself to drift, it all adds up. Not just in time lost, but in identity lost. The cost isn't just productivity, it's potential. Do you want change? Then prove it. Not to anyone else, but to yourself. To the part of you that's tired of talking and ready to act. Protect your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Not in some vague philosophical sense, but in a very real, very practical one. Time is your most non-renewable resource. Once it's gone, it doesn't come back. Every second you waste is one you will never retrieve. Every yes you give to something meaningless is a quiet no to your own potential. So stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Stop hoping something external will push you, because nothing is coming to save you. No breakthrough, no miracle, no perfect timing. No one's going to appear in your life and hand you discipline, clarity, or purpose. That has to come from within, and until you realize that, you'll keep giving your power away. You'll keep searching for solutions that were never outside you to begin with. But everything can change, radically, immediately. If you make one decision, you are in control. Not your phone, not your feelings, not your past, not your impulses or distractions. You, with your awareness, your ability to choose, your capacity to change. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." That's not just a quote for reflection, it's a challenge, a call to take responsibility, not just for where you are, but for where you're going. From this moment forward, your time is non-negotiable, not just important, not just valuable, non-negotiable. You protect it the way a philosopher protects wisdom, because without it, everything else slips. Your energy is sacred. It's not meant to be drained by things that don't matter. It's meant to be directed, focused, concentrated, toward building the kind of life you refuse to compromise on. Your discipline is no longer a tool you use when convenient. It's your edge, your armor, the line between you and mediocrity. And your actions, every single one, are no longer dictated by comfort or emotion. They're aligned with something higher, who you are becoming. Do you realize what happens when you make that shift? You stop surviving and start dominating. Not dominating people, but dominating yourself, your lower instincts, your distractions, your fears. Socrates believed that to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom, but wisdom without action is wasted. When you act in accordance with your highest self, you begin to design your days with intention. You begin to live on purpose, not by accident. And the truth is, it doesn't take a year to change your life. It doesn't even take a month. It takes a moment where you decide, this ends now. A moment where you no longer tolerate delay, indecision, or distraction. A moment where you stop reacting to life and begin creating it. Can that moment be tonight? Absolutely. Can it be now? Even better. Because once you understand the power of one decision, fully embraced, fully lived, then the weight of old excuses begins to fall away. The past doesn't matter if the present is lived correctly. And this beginning starts with you here, choosing not to wait another second. So ask yourself, with honesty and conviction, are you finally ready to take control? Not just for an hour, not just for a day, but for your life. Because this choice is not temporary, it's transformative, it's not motivational, it's foundational. Once you commit, once you say, this is mine now, your focus changes, your habits change, your results change, and slowly, then suddenly, you change. Because once you take control, truly take control, everything changes. Your world sharpens, your direction clarifies. You no longer ask for permission or wait for motivation. You move, you build, you lead, and the life you've been waiting for, it stops waiting too. It meets you at the level of your discipline. You don't need more time, you need more direction, and the moment you choose to lead your life instead of follow it, you stop chasing potential and start living it. Control isn't something you wait for, it's something you claim, quietly, relentlessly, every single day.